probably when I met John.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he referred me to you like about a week or so before I met you, and maybe it's been since before that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are live. We are live. So don't say any of those things you were saying before. Okay. It's all good. It's all
those
good.
Bad things about you two. Yeah.
Yeah. And welcome everybody to this edition of the Founder Friday. Super happy to have Ben Lambert here to talk about everything Demium and his story. But first, John, would you mind introducing yourself as the fellow panelist?
Sure. So hi guys, I'm John Gale. I have been working with startups for a long time. I was in a VP in a merger and acquisition group. I then went to Silicon Valley for 12 years. Then I moved to Europe a few years ago. So I sell services to high-tech startups. My company is based out of London.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, John. And Ben, thanks for spending some time with us. As we were reflecting before, it's been a while since we've seen each other in person, so I really appreciate you taking the time out today.
No, great.
This is for first-time founders particularly, and I wonder if you could talk just from the beginning about, your start in startups and where it all began for you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess since I was very young, I started getting involved in creating my own businesses and thinking about how to sort of create different opportunities where I felt like I was, doing or earning on my own and having that opportunity to earn on my own. And so that started at a very young age and sort of little mini businesses throughout school, and then went into the event space and started doing sort of like event organizing and had my own different events in both London. And then when I went to university in Edinburgh, I had my own events there, and I was sort of testing out a load of different tech things as well, and always trying out different businesses. At one point I had a university, I had a business that we didn't actually end up launching it properly, but we were gonna buy a load of TVs and then rent those out to students, because the price of buying wasn't something that anyone could ever agree on, and people would live together for a year, for example, so that we saw that as a potential problem. And yeah, it's just basically been around my own personal problems when I started, and sort of seeing problems in the market that might have better solutions and trying to solve those for people, right? So that's where most of the initial ideas, I guess, came up.
Fantastic. And your first big break, what was the first significant startup you got involved with?
So I think, yeah, I mean, in terms of financially, that's that I don't put them in the same sort of category, because there were good financial gains from some of those ones that I just mentioned. But then when I went and worked I was told I should go into banking because I spoke quite a few languages and was quite good at maths. So everyone kept saying, go to banking. So I was doing like sort of loads of internships in different areas of banks and venture capital and stuff like that. And it didn't really fit with me in the terms of the model that was being created. And then, so I jumped across into working for a corporate called Telefonica. The idea was that everyone's got a phone in their hand, so learn more about why they've got a phone in their hand, how they use it, what's the basis of all of that. And while I was there, I met we grew the advertising team, from which I call the startup within a corporate, from sort of 2 people to 5,000 people in 1 year, which was quite like an interesting growth plan. And then I started like an internal startup in Telefonica in the cloud space, and so I would sort of have my normal role, and then we were doing the startup on the side, which was called Andromeda. And the idea of Andromeda was that it was a multi-tiered cloud platform that powered large corporates and allowed their systems to work with each other. What does that mean? That means that their software that was powering their legal side of their business worked with the accounting side of their business, worked with their CRM, and it all sort of made sense and worked together, and it was optimized in terms of which cloud solutions people were using and how their business was powered. So that was the first time I started understanding about platforms, how they all work together, how bringing together ecosystems of like different technologies can really create a solution that's a lot more advanced and that can really power stuff moving forward. So I'd say that was probably the first one. We raised around £1 million, and we took a product to market. We had contracts signed with multiple large corporates, and then the fun hit and the whole thing got blown up by Telefonica because they couldn't see how they were adding value and how they didn't own us, so own the project. So it was, even though it was aligned, we aligned it with the top of Telefonica. It's a long story, but quite an interesting one, I guess. But we aligned it with the top board level of Telefonica, but not with some of the people who were sitting in the middle. And one of those people sort of reported us, and then they had to go through this whole system of investigation, let's say. But yeah, that was an interesting start, I guess, which was my initial sort of hunger for tech and ecosystems and how that can all work together and how I can create solutions moving forward from different products, came from there. So I'd say that was the break. And then, and my understanding of corporates and how they work and how to fight them legally and how to win legally and all those sorts of things came from there as well. So that was kind of an interesting experience.
It's a big learning curve, especially, I guess, what age were you when you were doing that?
24. And so what we used to do, so my boss at the time, or my co-founder, but I kind of called him my boss because he was my boss in normal day and then my co-founder at night, if that makes sense, which sounds a bit dodgy, but it wasn't like that. He was sort of older and French, and I speak French, and so I was like the young guy that could ask any questions and didn't really have any experience. So they'd use me to sort of like break down walls, and then he was like the old guy that didn't understand English, so that I could be like, no, he hasn't understood you. This, Frederick, what did you mean about this and stuff? And so that was quite a fun dynamic that actually onboarded some of the largest banks, and we got the whole, one of the largest computer companies in the world. We got the whole board of Europe to sit down inside Telefonica's walls at the office that I also helped design for Telefonica, which was quite fun. And we got them to have a board meeting about our project and to write a letter of intent saying that they were willing to put in £2 million into the project as an investor. And that we took, that plus two more of those we took to the board of Telefonica. They were quite keen, but because someone in the middle had already let's say reported us, we weren't allowed to move on because of the politics of the company. So that was a very steep learning curve, yeah, for sure.
Oh, fantastic. I yield the floor to the gentleman from Massachusetts. Do you have any questions today, John? You want to chuck out there to Ben?
Yeah, I see the business model and the types of startups you work with and the way you work with them as really differentiating Demium in interesting ways. I think the audience would benefit from hearing about that.
Sure. So about Demium itself, yeah? Yeah. Yeah. So just a bit about how I got into Demium is probably a good place to start there. I had many startups in the tech space across lots of different industries, as you'll probably see when Stu shares my LinkedIn, and so that went from anywhere from the legal space to the dating space to the sex tech space to the music space to the education space to the property space, and some of them are.
You can't throw that one out there and not expect us to come back, Ben, to the sex tech space. What's going on there?
So we actually were one of the pioneers of sex tech, which we can come back to. So because I'd had all these different experiences across different industries and started so many different companies across different industries and had varying, lots and lots of failures, 70% failures, let's say, and then I had recruitment tech as well. There's so many different spaces, right? So because I had that at the time, me and my wife were looking to move out of London, and we picked Lisbon, and then Demium approached me to invest into Demium as a company, and I decided not to invest into Demium, but I looked at their launch plan and said, well, you're launching Demium Lisbon. Why don't I launch it for you? I'd love to share some of these experiences that I've had across the different industries and different business models with new entrepreneurs and help them. So that's kind of how I got into Demium. So talking about those different business models, Demium, what it does is it pulls together amazing people who are looking to start, who have a big vision of what they want to achieve personally, and they don't really know how to achieve it, and they don't really know where to start, and they don't know who to start with, and we help them realize why they want to start something in terms of really understanding them from a base upwards. We help them find people that want to start something with them, and really understanding those values of both people values and the core values of the business that they want to choose. We help them come up with the MVP, and we help them find out how to essentially get the product market fit. We help them through all the stages, and then we look to potentially invest in them after that, and help them find investors. And essentially, that's the process that Demium brings in. In terms of different business models, I mean, we operate all different business models and different customer segments. Normally, I'm quite open with the team, the amazing team that I've got in Lisbon here that supports and runs the program. We've got obviously different areas that we have experience in, or we're more confident in. And if someone came to me saying that I don't know, let's think of something crazy. If someone came to me and said they want to build the next generation Tesla company, and they want to build a rocket that flies to space, I would say we're probably not the right team to support you on that, right? So we look at what the founders interested in, and if that founder or co-founders together, if it's not something that we think we can add sort of way more than the 15% that we take value, then we reject the company joining us, and we say you should probably go find somewhere else that can add more value to you. Did that answer your question, John?
Yeah, that's great. Stu?
We've definitely seen some great founders come through the Demium stuff, and I have to say, listening particularly to Gabby and her kind of experience, I was super impressed with some of the sort of deep ways that you try and get founders to connect with each other through the program. Yeah. What do you think about all that stuff? Is there any aspect of the program that you think is really amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we act. So the one thing that I implemented when joining last year is like this co-founder as a service mentality, right? Before we were an incubator or a startup partner, let's say, and we did all startup weekends, and we helped you. We were advisors. But in Demium Lisbon, we are like co-founders as a service. That can go anywhere from solving your co-founder issues that you have on a very deep basis, and using us to leverage, and make sure that you get the right result across the board, and to essentially solving problems. And that's what happened with Gabby a few times. And then all the way through to pitching at pitch events for you if you can't make it because something happens. So Diogo, who's head of incubation, he pitched for InnovLabs, which is another one of our cool startups in the edtech space. And he the founder had some personal news last minute that he couldn't attend the pitch event, and so Diogo pitched for him. So that's and Diogo had to create a whole pitch overnight. So he only had sort of like less than 24 hours, and he created a whole presentation around this business for himself, because he obviously wanted it to be a personal thing in terms of like how he saw the business, and he didn't really want to pitch someone else's pitch because it wouldn't come across very well. So Diogo created the whole thing overnight without sleeping, and then delivered the pitch, and the company had multiple follow-ups, and it was really amazing to see. And so yeah, and we kind of feel your pain, and we go through the whole process with you. And I think we know there's going to be pain in startups. We've been there before. I've had a lot of pain in startups, and you've got to sort of understand those startups from a very deep basis in terms of what they're feeling, how that changes, and if you don't understand those emotions, then you're not really in a very good place to advise them.
I mean, do you compare Demium to Founders First or any other program, or do you think it's truly unique?
So yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you can compare it to Entrepreneur First. You can compare it to Founders Factory, Founders Forum, or whatever. I think there's a few that you can compare it to. There's Antler in the UK. There's Rocket Internet, which is a bit different. So I think there are comparables. I think like on all of these things, I think the model is one thing, and it's the local team that implements that model in their way that's really important, and it's the values that those local people install both within the local culture of that accelerator, incubator, whatever it is, and also the values that that they live basically for the startups, right? So so yeah, so from that perspective, I would say that Demium Lisbon is very unique, yeah. And I think we have a very innovative culture. We're always trying new things. We've implemented many of the global initiatives that have come across Demium in the last year and a half. When I say many, I would say maybe 90% have come out of Demium Lisbon. So we're kind of like the innovation hub for Demium, which is awesome, and it's really cool, and that's credit to the whole team. And so that's kind of quite a fun place to be, and it's fun to sort of experiment. It's fun to sort of stay ahead of the game, and also it's fun for our startups, right? Because they're with a team that are pushing the boundaries constantly, and that are always trying to improve and improve the way they're giving the support to the startups, and also improve the processes of everything that's happening within the incubator on a global level, and with the freedom to be able to improve that and implement that, so that there's no sort of restrictions about how we act.
You've been to Demium, John. What were your impressions when you were there?
Well, I was impressed. One of the things I thought was really interesting was that several of the startups were planning on scaling in the Southern Hemisphere instead of the Northern Hemisphere, which I thought was very interesting. It's been a while since I was there. Are you still doing that? That'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, really good question. That is actually one unique point for sure, is that Demium's model is to look at secondary markets, right? So secondary markets, secondary European markets. So we have a presence in Minsk, we have a presence in Kiev, we have a presence in Warsaw, and these are all especially Warsaw, and Poland, very relevant markets. They're, huge, decent populations, huge capacity to spend, and the need for new technical products is super high, right? So one of the great things about Demium, I think they help you do is sort of feel very comfortable. Let's say we had one of our startups that wanted to launch in Warsaw, right? The office would be open to them. They would be able to go there. They'd be able to use that. That could be 6 months. That could be a week, right? So it's a very flexible, family sort of orientated feeling around that for sure. And I think that also depends on the office that you have, and we as Demium Lisbon try and help as much as possible on a global basis. So we have a lot of favors to pull back potentially for our startups, and that's always useful, right? So I'm sure that the different offices will allow that anyway, but yeah. So that's for sure a unique selling point, let's say, around how our startups can go to market, how the access to markets that they have is not normal for them to have those accesses to the markets that they have access to. So that's a really good point, John. Thank you.
So Ben, I doubt with your brain allows you to do one thing at a time for any long periods, right? You tend to have 2,000 or 3,000 ideas on the go at any one time. Demium, though, has been, 2-3 years? You've been in this now 2 years?
No, yeah. So I launched it back in March last year, so just over a year. And so that's another beautiful thing around what happens at Demium. And from my perspective is that, I was able to have an impact through multiple startups, and the effect of what those startups are able to the effect those startups are able to have on society was something that was really close to me. We've implemented a strategy to have around 65% of our startups here in Lisbon to be impact focused. Impacting the community, the planet, or something essentially sustainable, right? So from that perspective, it's something that's been really fun, and it's been amazing to be able to be part of their journeys, learning from seriously high quality people on a daily basis is something, multiple of them, right? So we have pushing sort of 70 plus entrepreneurs now, within Demi and Lisbon. They come from all over the world. Only around 30% of those people are Portuguese. I think we could say we're definitely the most international incubator in Portugal, and probably we're very different from any other sort of competition, let's say, within Portugal in terms of the value proposition that we offer.
Absolutely. And we've met some great people come through to Demo Night from Demi. I mean, it's been real. If everybody that comes through the program looks like that, it's an amazing thing that you're achieving, whether through to the selection process or the mechanisms.
Thanks,
John. You got a follow-up question?
Sure. Which sectors is your Demium Lisbon office strongest at? In other words, if somebody was a startup and they're trying to figure out, is Demium Lisbon a good place for me? What sectors do you do best?
I think Demium globally as a business, right? It just based on the business model and how we work, we've tended to pick up a lot of e-commerce, a lot of SaaS businesses. Those two sort of sectors are areas those two areas are things that we genuinely pick up based on there are so many ideas in those spaces. I guess like those two areas are things that we've become strong at. Marketplaces, these sorts of ideas. I think the point is like, meet the team, see how you click with the team. These are the people that are going to be working with you on a weekly basis, and I think we can support many different sectors and many different business models, and it's all about sort of having a can-do attitude and the ability to find solutions and be connected with the right people. And within our team, we've got connections across Europe to the right investors, mentors, and everything else that we need, and across the world, I guess. So it just really depends. And if it's not right, then we're also very happy. We'll be the first people to say it's not right, because we prefer that you make a success of your business than sit there worrying about something not being right.
Okay, so as sort of a further thing down that line, it's hard to find a robotic software incubator in Portugal. If a robotic software startup came to you,
we would say no.
Well, where would you refer them to?
I would refer them to Coimbra, and there's Coimbra Tech Center. They've got, or maybe it was Aveiro. Aveiro. Which is the one that's further down? I think it's Coimbra or Aveiro. Anyway,
Aveiro is farther north.
Further north, yeah. So Coimbra has like a very strong technology center, and I would refer it to some of them. So we actually did a road trip with the team around Portugal last October, and we wanted to get to know Portugal from the ground up, and we wanted to understand the different centers there were, and so that was one of the ones that we found. So I would definitely recommend that tech center. I think once you build your robot and once you're thinking about then like how to take that to market, how to do a load of things, I think we would be able to do that. So if you had the builders of the robot and you had like the expertise and knowledge around that side of stuff, then it's just a software as a service model, right? So it really depends on what sort of model that you're implementing on that, or how that works. If it's just a unit sales, then it's different. But actually the building and the building of robotics is not something that we have expertise in there.
Okay, so the folks who are watching this or looking for replay later should pay attention, because there's too many incubators who claim they can do everything. So it's great to hear somebody help you focus on what they're good at and what they'd send you somewhere else for.
Yeah, well, we're actually looking confidentially to however many millions of people you've got on here, Steve, Stu. But we're actually looking at opening in Porto as well, and making that very focused on impact, focused on social impact as an incubator. I think it's something that I've seen a need for. I think that there's a need for like climate-focused incubators. I think that to help the planet restore itself in the next 10 years, we need to see a lot more businesses that that are coming out. There's one in our incubator called Crave, for example, which is a marketplace for sustainable brands. And what they do is they help consumers make smart decisions around where to buy things by having those offerings on the platform, right? So like it's like eBay for brands that you're doing good things to the planet. So that's pretty cool. And then I mean, there are many more. I mean, we've got one called Hugger Group, which is making an impact on, I mean, Stu, you know Hugger Group probably as well, but making an impact on your mental health and sort of group therapy online. So that's pretty cool as well.
That's great. Stu?
You're on mute, Stu, by the way. I don't know how.
We're still not hearing you, Stu.
Fortunately, he's got a face for radio, so it's fine. Can you hear us, Stu? I guess you can hear us. All right, cool. Maybe type your question. There we go. I think you're. No, you're not back. Carry on. Okay, cool.
Okay, so as you look forward to the future for Demium, how are you positioning yourself for Lisbon? I understand what you're doing in Porto, and that's great. I have a lot of respect for that. But in the Lisbon piece, how are you continuing your differentiation? How is Demium going to continue to be different and better?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to continue to be different. I think we're already very different. I think we have to just continue to get better, right? So we had a second head of incubation around product and growth join us in January called Maxime. And that's been great. Diogo is excellent at the numbers side, at the operational side, at the processes side, and a load of other things, ideation and a load of other things within what's needed for our startups. And then Maxime brings a different let's say a different angle to the table, right, to help growth and product and things like that. So I think growing the team. Yeah, you're back on, Stu. I keep calling you.
Any better?
Saying Steve. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, fantastic.
So the next stage will be just to continuously grow the team, provide more. So we've got a perks platform within Demium. So provide more perks, provide more reasons for startups to join us. You know, as an example, we'll give 20,000 Google credits and 10,000 Amazon credits when people join us, and there's a load of sort of actual financial benefits from being part of us, and yeah, so I think it's just about building out that team. So I think, you know, if we can continue to do that, if we have like a tech expert, for example, as a full-time employee that can actually help build certain things within the platform. I know Maxime can, and also Diogo's learned how to code. So there's different things that they can do, but yeah, that's an example. And then, for example, we've got sort of expertise from Leo around sales and business development. And
Hello.
We have an extra interviewer now.
An extra interviewer.
It's a game of two halves. It's a game of two halves, Ben.
Please carry on. Please carry on, Ben. Hello.
I got you. But am I being interviewed, or are we?
No.
You're going to be interviewed.
Yes.
Got you. So Stu's already cheating on me. That's great. I can understand why. Cool. So yeah, that's how I see it growing, really, John.
Okay, great. Stu?
So just before Sylvia asks you a couple of questions, Ben, I wonder, you mentioned something before, which is interesting in the sequence, which is you chose Lisbon and then decided that Demium will be a good project in Lisbon. What is it you chose about Lisbon, and how do you feel about it having been in Lisbon for a year or so now?
So I firmly believe that Lisbon will be the center of tech startups within the next 5 years. I have so many of my friends who are like powerhouses in startups that are moving their startups, uprooting their startups to Lisbon or Lisbon surrounding areas. I think that the lifestyle that Portugal offers is something that is super attractive. There's many different reasons. There's great talent. There's great humility here in terms of the people are super humble, welcoming, and all of that side of stuff are reasons for people to move here, right? And I think that COVID will just accelerate that, based on the fact that people have realised they don't want to be cooped up in a one-bed flat in the centre of London. That they'd rather be in a space that has a lot more, or in a place that has a lot more space, in somewhere beautiful like Lisbon. And so I think I very much believe and see and look forward to pioneering that happening, even at a more accelerated rate, over the next 5 years.
Fantastic.
It's
interesting you said about the humility thing. One of the things that I think I'm allowed to say it on a recording, but I usually refer to Portugal as the least assholes per capita startup ecosystem that I've ever worked in. I think it's been
I fully agree.
Great.
Fully agree. I think that the environment and I think it comes from a cultural thing of what Portugal had to go through in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, and I think that's the first side of it. I think it comes from a government that's very sound and very sort of when I say very sound, no government is very sound, but much more sound than anywhere else that I've ever lived and been part of. So I think that it's a very nice platform to build on, and I think that those two features mean that the entrepreneurs have a great a great platform to build on, and they're able to do. I kind of describe when I'm introducing Lisbon to people that haven't been here, from a tech point of view, I do describe it. Sorry, John, if I go too far this way, but do describe it as San Francisco back in the day, because I think that all of the support system is here in Lisbon. I think that you have the right agencies now, you have lots of the right money coming in, you have a lot of things. I'm not saying that you have the same money that you have in San Francisco and stuff like that. I'm just saying that the support ecosystem is there, and the willingness to change and be different and push forward and innovate and try stuff and fail, and all of those sort of the mentality that made San Francisco so special back in the day that I don't believe it has anymore, is now here in Lisbon, and it's not in Berlin, it's not in Paris, it's not in London, that I've seen anyway, or Madrid. I think that Lisbon is very special for those things, and I think that it is in Porto as well, but less of the. I think Porto at the moment has less of a sort of ambitious mentality, but I think that is here in Lisbon, and so if I were to compare it, I do see many of those features from back in the day in San Francisco when it started kicking off. Not that I was around to see it, from what I've been told.
What do you think about that, John?
Well, the San Francisco Bay Area is really a whole series of startup ecosystems. Like, I was on the board of the Silicon Valley Association of Startup Entrepreneurs, and we were very strong in Santa Clara, Mountain View, and places there. Stanford, which was in Menlo Park, or Palo Alto, is really a different world. And you get up to San Francisco, and that's a different world. And then you cross over to Berkeley, and UC Berkeley is in a different world. So it's a series of different startup ecosystems that overlap in various ways. And people on the outside really don't get that until you've lived there a while.
Sure.
So I can understand the message you've given. I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, no, and that's a similar. I can relate that to, as you were saying, like around Coimbra. I mean, at a much lesser level, but Coimbra has one of the top universities in Portugal, and they, there's a lot of talent coming through, and which is supported by a strong ecosystem. Someone else has just joined us, Stu.
Yeah, so Sylvia had some troubles with the connection.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Sylvia. Hola.
It's really nice to be surprised like this by Stu while I'm drinking my morning coffee, and all of a sudden I'm on screen in public. Hi guys, I'm Tiana. I'm one of the coaches in Canopy. Spend quite a lot of time in Lisbon. At the moment I'm in Brazil. Ben, amazing altogether, super impressive. So a question. I'm all about expertise as a service, services on demand, the gig economy, lean. All of that. I've been in the space for 10 years. So I like that nowadays we have these expert services that are high level. So not just like a simple gig, like do me a landing page, but like really serious stuff, like as you mentioned, co-founder as a service. So I wanted to ask you, like, is this something that your organization offers to startups as the next best thing in case they do not have an appropriate co-founder at the time, or you believe it's definitely even better than having a classic setup?
No, so we help you find your co-founder, right? So we pull you together as a team and help you find. So we're a recruitment business essentially. We recruit the best talent and we pull you together with people and that help you complement your skills and your values and what you believe in. So we are not a co-founder as a service in the way that you just described it. We're a co-founding team as a service because we have 5 different people who have various different skills who together I would believe to be more valuable than an actual co-founder in the first 6 months of your business. So that's what Demium is. That's what we are here in Demium Lisbon. I think it definitely doesn't replace having a co-founder. Definitely you should have co-founders and you should. I think having a co-founder is the most valuable thing you can have in a startup, to be honest. I've tried to do it on my own many times and it's really, really tricky. And I think that's one thing that I, as an investor as well, I probably wouldn't invest in startups that didn't have a co-founder unless there was crazy traction, crazy product market fit. That would kind of be the process I would go through, the mental process. So in terms of how we step in, I guess we could be called as a co-founder for certain perspectives. Like we would step in and take over a role for a short period of time, and then Leo would try and help you find someone that would be able to fill that role. Leo is also from São Paulo, Brazil. I don't know where you are in Brazil, mas onde estás in Brazil?
I'm in Ceará, Northeast.
Ceará, nice.
Aqui no Nordeste, Ceará.
I couldn't hear you very well, but anyway.
Okay, cool. So basically, you help find another co-founder, which is like a kind of a matching service. Is that true?
Yeah. So the process of Demium is we recruit people as outstanding people who have ability and who have commitment and who have ambition. And then we put those people together and match their skills to each other and match their values to each other through a 4-step process. The first step is you apply and you get selected through our online portal. If you get selected to the second stage, then it's sort of like an in-person interview / team dynamics. If you get selected to the third stage, it's a weekend, which John has been to and Stu has been involved in before. Which is a weekend it's like a hackathon weekend, but for startups. And you pull together and there's around 30 people, 10 different startups, 3 to 4 people per team. If you get through that stage, then it's a 2-week process of seeing if you can find your right team within the 30 people or the 15 people that we select at the final stage. By then you normally have a pretty good idea. There's someone you've probably worked with on one of these 4 stages, and you're able to essentially close your team after the 2 weeks, or at least close the fact that you've got a co-founder, and then you're looking for, I don't know, a tech person or a marketing person or a CEO or whatever it might be, and you want to, and then we help you find those people moving forward whilst doing the ideation and sprinting forward with the idea that we've come up with you, for you, whatever it might be.
So it's similar to Startup Weekend concept, but way more extensive and deeper, and it just the process is way longer and I guess more serious in a way. Startup Weekend is more like an exercise. Okay, exactly. Got it. I guess it's interesting for those people who come there without the idea, but with general enthusiasm for entrepreneurship, and then they join the founders with the actual idea.
Exactly. You don't need an idea to join us at all. You just need like commitment, passion, some sort of experience. That's one good thing to mention actually. So Lisbon also implemented a rule around having around the minimum experience level of around 10 years in the working world. Now that rule has been broken many times, right? It's a flexible thing, but what we try and do is we target those people so those are the sorts of people that we attract. And the reason being is because by that time you've probably got some sort of security. Startups aren't that easy. We know that you need 6 months runway within your bank account to be able to do it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we know that sort of the average age. There's no average age for starting a startup, of course, but there's sort of many stats to say that in your 30s and your 40s you have a higher chance of achieving success in your startup. So these are all things that we implemented within Lisbon, which was very different from the other cities, and I think lots of them have started doing it as well. Again, there's no rules. The founder of Hugger Group's 25, and they're one of our high performing startups. So if you want it, then you can have it for sure. And also, we can support you, and as long as you're committed and you're passionate, then there's a way forward.
Fantastic.
Cool,
Thank you,
for
John, what follow-up question do you have?
Obrigado, yeah.
So you described sort of the sequence up through the weekend that I went through, but how long does your defined program last, and then what happens after that defined program to a startup? I mean.
Yeah, no, good question. So the defined program lasts 6 months. So Diogo and I and the team, we came up with a 28-week program. So it's around deliverables on a weekly basis. So you set your goals on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, and you will deliver those things by the end of that week. And there'll be actually I'm having it in about 20 minutes with one of the groups, which is the delivery time essentially, and then they say what they've done, and we help you stick to those commitments that you've made and have accountability for what you're doing. So 28-week program. The idea is after the 28 weeks that you'll be in a position to either having incorporated, you've got revenue, you've definitely got your product market fit, you've got you're probably speaking to many investors through us, with us, and yeah, that's the program in terms of the lifeline. So Demium takes a percentage in your business. We don't take any payment. So we need to make your business successful for us to be successful. So in terms of the lifelong commitment of Demium, it is to support your business growing, the partnerships, the potential exit, the potential revenue that you can pull in. That all affects us as well, right? So arguably the hardest part of any journey is the exit side of stuff. So having a support through all of those 5 to 10 years, let's say, of the startup journey or 20 years, whatever it might be, but let's just say 10 years on average is super interesting and useful for the startup. John didn't like my question, right?
Yeah, I think you upset him.
He decided to disconnect. Yeah.
Tiana, have you got any follow-ups?
Sylvia had a question on here, I think. Oh no, sorry, Tijana.
That's actually my question. So it's me, Tiana. I can ask it now here live. So what's next for a serial entrepreneur like you? Are you gonna stay focused on the organization you're in now, or you have some plans?
I'm always building new things. So it's kind of like a revolving door. And so recently, as I was telling Stu just before, we've been helping mobilize governments and health institutions around the world and help them get the right products on a social enterprise basis for the last sort of 4 months with a team that we pulled together very quickly, also in Brazil and South America. Speaking lots of languages and knowing lots of people, it was sort of like something that we felt like we wanted to support the world and make sure that happened. So that's a business that's going. But no, I mean, I think there's always interesting businesses joining Demium. We've just launched an acceleration program, which is called United, uniting Demium around COVID and uniting Lisbon essentially. And so we've got 4 new awesome projects on there. Very, very different types of projects, right? So there's one local advertising, like improving sort of local shops for from an advertising perspective. One is online yoga and spiritual journey type of platform that offers sort of a gamified experience around sort of yoga. One is called You Make ID, which is localizing manufacturing. Something that I'm super passionate about is like the climate, as I said earlier, and how that needs to sort of be drawn into Europe. If you're in Europe, for example, you need to sort of start locally sourcing so many more things, and so what You Make ID does is it helps you find the best factories for the products that you need to source, and the best ways to source that within Europe. Finally, Spermatorial is actually a Turkish startup, and it does what it kind of says on the tin. So it's a testing service for men's semen or men's sperm, to see how what's the word? Stu, help me.
Potent,
I guess I was thinking in my head as well.
Fertile,
thank you. I was thinking potent as well, Stu. So I'm glad you're on my and I was like, I don't want to say potent. No, to see how fertile you are and to test out your potency levels, your fertility levels. Again, very, very different. All of them very different, right? And that just shows sort of the versatility within the ecosystem here, but also within Demium, for sure.
So Ben, at the end of this session,
is there a chance you personally join as a co-founder of one of the startups from the program?
So I mean, I guess I have. There's been a few different occasions where the startups have wanted me as a like separate type of actor or advisor or whatever it might look as. And so far, there's been no startup that I've joined as a co-founder, clearly. So I don't really think it's within the model. I get carry in every single startup that we start as well. So I'm kind of like part of that anyway. So I'm incentivized to help as a co-founder would be. But never say never, right?
Fantastic. Thanks, Ben. So in a couple of minutes, we'll sort of draw to a close. And the bit that I'd like you to leave us with at the end is, what's your top tip for a first-time founder? It'd be really interesting to kind of get that from you. But while you're chewing that around in your head, really like to know what drives you. You're covering 1,000 things in the 25 different dimensions all the time. You're constantly on the move. You seem quite restless. What is driving you and to keep going into all these different things when you've had so much success already?
Well, I have one goal.
To conquer the universe, or what?
To change the lives of 1 billion people.
Okay.
So everything that I do is centered around that goal, and that can manifest itself in many different ways. So I guess that is, from a business perspective, that's my one goal. And obviously, from a personal perspective and everything else, there are many different goals. But yeah, from a business perspective, that's pretty much, I guess, how I keep the focus on moving forward. And so, although there are many different things happening always at once, it's always centered around like how this goal is going to be achieved. And then if that goal is achieved, then money and everything else will follow. Essentially, is how I look at it. And if it doesn't, then I don't really care.
Do you have any gauge for how far down the billion people you are already?
No clue. So I just always start from the beginning.
Fantastic.
Every single project that I get involved in, I'm like, well, can this impact 1 billion people? It's like a VC, right? So every venture capital investment that they make, or every investment that venture capital makes needs to return the fund. Right. So what does that mean? That means that if it's a 20 million fund, if they're putting in $200,000 or whatever as a check size, they need to think that 200,000 can get them 20 million one day. So I guess if I get involved in as many different things that I think can impact 1 billion people or more on each of the stages, then one of them will work, or 10 of them will work, or whatever it might be, and then that impact will be multiplied across the world. So that's from that perspective. In terms of the advice, you asked another question before that you asked me to mull over, and then you asked me another question that I had to answer, which was quite easy, so it's fine. So yeah, advice, I would say, I would give the opposite of my own advice, but no, focus on your goal, focus on what matters to you in terms of like, do something that really drives you and that really is at the core of what you're doing. Surround yourself by the right people and execute well, right? So it's all about execution, measuring. Doesn't matter about the idea. Start testing. Don't worry about what people think about your product. Don't worry about what people think about your idea. Like, just start putting it out there and testing it. And you don't try and keep those ideas to yourselves. I mean, of course you are innovative, and of course you will be doing many different things that are innovative, but if you're really doing something that's truly different from every other person on the planet, then congratulations, and probably no one else is going to do it, because you're doing something that's very, very different from everyone else on the planet, and you are the only person that wants to do that, which is cool. So do it, and do it well, and don't worry about sharing those things. So those would be a few different bits of advice I think I'd give.
Thanks, man. That's really cool. John, Tiana, you got any final reflections before we close out for the day?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So first of all, I apologize for disappearing. Windows 10 decided to crash on me.
Don't use Windows. That's another tip.
But it does impact more than 1 billion people, just in different ways, right?
So when I visited Demium, I had the impression that the people who were joining Demium were very early stage. Is that always true, or does that vary? And what are the two most important characteristics you look for in somebody who's going to join you?
So commitment, focus, and passion, I guess, is the characteristics we look for, and some sort of track record in terms of, like, if you are I don't know, if you are an engineer that's been building bridges for large companies your entire life, and then you want to start like a food startup that's completely, I think there's got to be some transferable skills, right? Because you've got to have competitive advantage within the market. So that's really important. We are early stage, so all of the businesses that started from before, we create the businesses, right? We come up with the ideas most of the time. I'm lucky enough that I have like 10 ideas a day, and so do the rest of the team. So, we give a good pool to choose from, I guess. And that's quite exciting, seeing like lots of different ideas come to life. I think that the only ones that have already been companies that have joined us is more recently in this acceleration program that we launched just because of COVID. And because we didn't really, although we were told it wasn't the worst thing in the world, we kind of thought it was the worst thing in the world to put 100 people in one room. But yeah, let's leave that to another time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, John. Tiana, last question or reflection from you?
Ben, I think you still owe us the details about that sex tech business.
That's very true, Tiana. He didn't go back to it, did he? The sex tech business.
The sex tech business. Sure. Yeah. Good point. So you were listening before, Tiana. That's good. So we just couldn't see you. So I mean, I've had a few. So we launched the first mobile application that sold sex toys, just sold sex toys in the world. The only other app that was allowed to be on the App Store that sold any sex toys at all was Amazon. And you can imagine what kind of weird and wonderful things you found in that. So it was called Sex Toy with 2 eyes. And so we launched that, and we had some good successes with that. We were top of the App Store with that. We were, partnership with, we felt we were very close with Apple and with Google, and we had a very good understanding with them based on the fact that we would take out the smuttiness of choosing sex toys, and we would try and we would have certain rules about the types of products that we had on there. So they would have to be made from the right materials, and they would have to be when I say the right materials, just materials that aren't harmful for your body, for example. And there were lots of things that allowed us to stand out from the market. I think it's safe to say that the sex toy industry is kind of like a pretty dirty industry, or like, you know, in the past. And so there are many new brands coming out that make it a lot more attractive and a lot more accessible, right? And so we were one of the first ones to do that. You know, getting that through the App Store was a challenge, as you can imagine, because you know, it's one of the topics on the list, with gambling and drugs and weapons and stuff like that people, you know, that people do get restricted on. So you can imagine every type of platform that we had to break down the barrier, like get people on board, investors, like convincing them, you know, they're going to go home at night and tell their partner or whatever, you know, I've just invested in this company, and they got to feel proud of it, right? So, you know, there were lots of different. This was what, 5 years ago. So there were lots of different difficulties, let's say, with the journey. We launched multiple different brands in that space, and it went on to sexual advice. And I also had a dating app before that as well. So I sort of, I guess we took an understanding of what people want and how people think about things, and then we translated that across into this industry. And that's kind of been like the basis as well of like how I work. Like understanding people is like really important to me. Por isso falo português também. So, you know, like understanding people in their own language is like super important. Like, so understanding that language, whatever that language is, whether that's expressed through sex or through dating or through education or whatever, that's, you know, that's something that's like a base of most of the things that I build.
Fantastic. Great last question there, Tiana. Thank you very much.
That's the essence of the product management. Thank you. Sure.
Ben, it's been great to have you here today. Thank you very much for making the time for us and for giving your words and insights. I think everybody who's watching this today and watching it on demand is seeing a bit of what makes you tick, and that's really cool. Thank you.
Cool.
For first-time founders particularly, it's an inspiration to see how much you're handling in so many different dimensions at the same time.
Not always good, but yes. Keep your mental health happy. Like I try and go out for lots of walks and stuff, and definitely keeping, I think through over the last sort of 6 months for sure, my wife's been telling me to go. I go in the morning with her to sort of the forest and have a walk and stay away from technology, and definitely have breaks because otherwise you just go crazy. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. I give you one of these and a salute.
Ooh.
Good to have you. Thanks, man.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.